This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Support for this podcast comes from Manscaped, who is the best in the business in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. We're coming close to Christmas, guys. Our jingle bells are starting to jangle. Any of you single guys at your office Christmas party and you see the woman of your dreams across the floor, but you're too down in confidence and you're not sure about your tinsel down below to go and ask her out? Well, that's why Manscaped has designed the electric trimmer. The Lawnmower 2.0 is proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't nick or snag your baubles. Manscaping accents are finally a thing of the past. You wouldn't use the same trimmer on your face as you would maybe down there, because that's just nasty. And also, Manscaped has provided us with the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing deodorant and moisturizer. You already put deodorant on your armpits, so why not put it down there too? Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job, and you know what? Your baubles will thank you. So once again, get 20% off and free shipping when you use the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the code BIGHEADS.
Greetings, Dog Pound Nation. Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast, now part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network, with myself, John Cahill, and my good friend and fellow Irish Brown fans, Neil Dunmort. We're here today on our Victory Monday after a fantastic win yesterday over the Miami Dolphins. We're going to bring Neil in now. We'll do it very gently because he's suffering with a bad cold at the moment. So, Neil, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing today, because you'll probably tell us.
No, I just want everyone to feel sorry for me. Man flu is real. I have meningitis, as my missus calls it. Yeah, it's life-threatening. Send flowers and prayers. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, for today, we'll keep it reasonable for today. Today we will have a look at how the defense and the offense and special teams played, and then we'll have a quick little look at the state of where we are now and what's coming ahead the next few weeks. So to start off, Neil, I suppose high octane offense yesterday really got us through the game.
Thankfully,
anyone stand out for you?
Yeah, I think it's. And look, I know this is historically badly put together roster in the Dolphins, but I think we're getting to the point where we can say that Baker is fixed. Couple of errant throws, all right, but you show me a quarterback that doesn't have those and still puts up kind of numbers that he did yesterday. My prediction wasn't far off. I said he'd have 320 yards, he'd have 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. He had 327, 5 and 1. Should have been probably 2. But that one that came off OBJ that was intercepted, it was called back. Or no, was it that one? Or was it the crazy one whereby did he have, yeah, he don't even win interception. He had 3 touchdowns, sorry, not 4. What was it? The one that it
came off the back of OBJ.
Yeah, but no, the other one was even more crazy. It was a throw that hit off someone's hands. Was it Higgins' hands? Hit off a fella's helmet, shot forward about 5 yards into another fella's hand, and that was an interception. I remember that was one of the craziest interceptions. Did I dream that, or did that happen? That happened, yeah.
I think you dreamed it, because yesterday he had 1 interception, and that was the one off of.
But there was one that was called back as well. There was another interception that was called back.
Oh yes, there was one called back for holding it, or the hit to Harris. On the sportsman the helmet.
That was that was actually Harris. The one. It was a crazy. Yeah, it was a crazy interception. Like, I'd never seen anything like that before. But
what do you make, Neil? Right, so say like to get nitpicky here with the offensive display yesterday. Obviously, we had great games from Baker, Chubb, Landry. Hunt played well. Beckham played well. What's happening when we hit the lull? Right, so we seem in games to hit this skid. We seem to hit this patch in games. I think it was most of the third quarter yesterday. What's happening? We seem to get little runs of bad luck, or little runs of things that don't go our way. We can't seem to have a complete game without these kind of lulls. It's a little bit concerning, because like we should have been standing on the Dolphins' throat and running the ball into the ground and not letting them have the ball for the second half. So like we looked untouchable in the first half, and then they scored 17 unanswered points and got themselves back into the game essentially.
Yeah, well, I suppose
Not for long though.
there's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, we did have a lull, but it's very seldom you will see a team, especially a young team, and a lot of the things that you can come back to with this team is the fact that it's a youthful team. We're still the third youngest team in the NFL. So like for a young team, it's going to be hard to kind of keep that intensity up. And I suppose it really, like, I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, but you can't do that against the Steelers, and you can't do that against the Ravens, you can't do that against Arizona. But when something is easy, it becomes boring. And not even boring, but you lose concentration. Like when something is becoming easy and monotonous, we were up, 28 points? And then they got it back to 28-17, and then we were able to put the foot in the pedal and rattle off another 13 points again. So it's not really a concern in this game. Maybe it was probably more of a concern, I thought, against the Bills. When we were up that 7 points, now we just couldn't do anything. I think the ineptitude comes from in that game, the game against the Bills. I think it was more so kind of poorish play calling at times, not getting Baker into a rhythm or getting him out of his rhythm. Without a couple of short kind of easy connections they could have made. In this game, I thought Kitchens coached a pretty good game. There was only one kind of, I suppose, what would I call it, a circus play, and
reverse toss.
Yeah, but if you look at it, there's a clear open ground. If that goes to Landry, there's a clear open ground for him to run into. It would have been a touchdown. So the design of the play was good. The execution of it just didn't come to pass. But yeah, I can't answer the question you asked me. I can't really answer, but I suppose it is difficult to kind of keep playing high octane stuff against a team that are not going to come back and beat you. And there was this team was never going to come back and beat the Browns. Just wasn't happening. Now, I suppose you could say that I think they're the first third quarter points that Miami have scored all this year, and I got 14 of them against us in the third quarter. So maybe that might be a cause for looking back at the tape. But I thought this defense played very well, and I thought the offense played really well as well. I would have no qualms about it, and I'm not too worried about the lull in this game itself.
The offense essentially ran through Jarvis Beckham and Hunt and Chubb, sort of two tandems. Demetrius Harris popped up there with a couple of catches. Carlson a catch, I think, as well. That was essentially it. Is it too soon to start getting excited about Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt as a tandem there? It's working very well.
It's not too soon at all. It's working exactly. I would imagine it's working exactly how that offensive coordinator's room wants it to work. And we have to, Nick Chubb is amazing. Nick Chubb is 1,270 odd yards from scrimmage this year, 224 yards or something like that, catching, and then the rest is 1,117 or something like that from rushing. Nick Chubb is brilliant. He's amazing. I saw a stat yesterday. He has 101 yards. He's averaging 101 yards per game. Now he that was rushing. He rushed for 106 yesterday, but it's the best average at this stage since the 1960s with Jim Brown, and he averaged 103. So this guy Nick Chubb could have the highest average of rushing in a passing league for the Browns of all time, considering that Jim Brown is the name that keeps on coming up. It's phenomenal what we're witnessing from Nick Chubb.
It's a good thing to see, Neil. I suppose even if you think about projecting into the future and for next year, it's a good footing. It's a good basis for an identity for this team, which was sadly lacking through the first 6, 7, 8 games. And which we kind of see now as sort of a hard-nosed running team, that's not afraid to put it up shove it up the gut there. It's good to see that coming to fruition now, and teams are going to have to take note of our running game when they're playing us, which obviously opens up other corridors. I think this is where, unfortunately, I think where our offense now is where we thought our offense was going to be first game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, with our expectation levels being too high, we got caught out, unfortunately. But anyhow, what we'll do is we take a quick break here to hear from our sponsors of Big Heads Media, and we'll be back to you after that, and we will get straight on to the defensive side of the ball.
Are you a purple and orange bleeding, Maryland flag boasting Baltimore sports fan looking for a podcast that delivers an hour of content every week?
Then you need to subscribe to Charm City Birdwatch, presented by the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
You'll hear insight on the Ravens, Orioles, and Terps from Jake McDonald, Nolan McGraw, and myself, Ian Schultz.
With takes coming from both fans and young names in the Baltimore sports media conglomerate, Charm City Birdwatch is the perfect place to catch up on Baltimore sports talk. Subscribe today.
So, Neil, on the defense, what I am noticing from the game yesterday is, say without looking at box scores, without looking at what went on, who did what. I saw Tacky flashing up on my screen a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Greedy flashing up a few times. I thought they started to find Greedy a little bit in the second half, but he coped well, and Joe Schobert popping up with another 2 interceptions. Now, decent enough display overall from the defense. That was a terrible offense we were playing, so trying not to read too much into it. From the box scores, from the stats you have in front of you there, what pops out?
Chad Thomas was our highest graded defender, 89.9. Let's have a little pause for that.
Yeah. Brian Cox showed up.
Brian Cox did show up. Port Augustine just basically signed in off the practice squad, and Brandon Bryant. Actually, it was interesting. Port Augustine had 25 snaps and Bryant had 22 snaps. So it wasn't as if that they were just brought in. They played 1/3 of all the defensive snaps. Miami Dolphins only had 63 offensive plays. And they played 1/3 of them. So that's, for me, that's quite amazing. Chris Smith only played 16 snaps in the whole game.
Porter Augustine is my new man crush, Neil.
Yeah, it's the beard.
It's the body.
It's the body.
Yeah, I aspire. That's what I aspire to.
And you can be anything you want to be
when I grow up.
Yeah, when you grow up. The interesting thing from the snap counts and looking at them as well is that there was only 2 players that played every defensive snap, and
who was that? Sheldon Richardson?
No, Justin Burris and Mac Wilson. Sheldon Richardson only played 42 snaps, would you believe? And Joe Schobert only played 56.
The core of our rookie draft class there as well, I thought looked well yesterday. I thought, it was the first game, the first time seeing them all on the field and all that. Like, it was a good, it was good there. And like we had, like, from the stats I'm looking at from the tackle solo and combined tackle stats from yesterday, they are very evenly distributed out through the whole defense, like down from Schobert and Randall and Sheldon Richardson at the top of it, down to Terrence Mitchell, Tacky, Greedy Williams, Kaderl Hodge showing up with that was just a tackle from the special teams, I'd imagine. So, like, a good all-round performance against a poor team, it has to be said. 1 or 2 mistakes. Boris let someone walk in for a touchdown.
Missed the tackle.
Missed the tackle. Someone else fell on their arse at some point at a very vital time. I can't remember. TJ Carey, actually. That's who it was at vital moments. But we didn't get punished as much because of how well our offense was playing and how bad their offense was.
I thought actually that
they're a bad team.
They are a bad team, absolutely. Like, they're a horrendous team, and they did start to pick on Greedy Williams at times in the second half, and I just don't like the way that he doesn't get his head around to try and at least find the ball. Like, on a different day, I was amazed how fair the refs were yesterday, considering everything that's been going on in Cleveland over the last 10 days. But
we got the rub of the green yesterday, Neil.
I actually thought so as well. I didn't know whether I was being kind of, naive or what in my thinking of that, but I think we did. I think there was a couple of times we had Am I right in saying that there was a defensive pass interference overturned?
Yep.
There was?
Yep. I nearly got
Unicorn
sick.
shit.
Actually, I don't know if it was overturned. I think it wasn't called, but then was called or something.
That was it,
but
yeah. It went to boot review, yeah. I
yeah,
thought Freddie throw the flag or what happened there because we had no sound in the game. We watched it just on a tangent. We watched it with a group of about 15 to 20 other Ohioans, and I must say thank you so much to Chris McNeil from Reflog, from the Reflog Big Play show for he sent us over loads of t-shirts. His sister Jenny was actually was with us yesterday, and there was another extended family were with us as well, and they had listened to the podcast. John, they had actually listened to the podcast. It was they're the first people I've come across that aren't my mom and dad that have listened to the podcast. So it was, yeah, it was something else, but yeah, it was just kind of strange. They were saying, yeah, you did the podcast on this and you did the podcast on that, but no, as I say, special shout out to Danny, and Danny brought all his extended family with him, and there was tons of people there. It was really good fun. And if anybody wants to see some of the photos we had up before the madness, they are on Facebook as well. So it's Facebook, and you'll find, I think I put up one or two last night from on the Twitter as well. So thank you very much to everybody who brought us presents and brought us stuff. But that was on a tangent. I can't remember where we were before that. I think we were talking about I can't remember what it was. But to come back to the game itself, it was an interesting one. The defense is interesting. Like Mac Wilson for a coverage linebacker, he gave up a lot of receptions yesterday, and he gave up a lot of yards. That's one thing, I suppose. If I was to kind of be super critical with regards to anything that any of the rookies did, especially, I liked what Taki did. Coverage still isn't really his game, but I liked he was getting in the backfield. I liked the way he was very chirpy. You know, they were using him as a pass rusher at times off the edge. They used TJ Carey as well as a pass rusher at times off the edge. He was actually very, very good. That's one of the best better games, should I say, I've seen him play for the Browns. Thought he was pretty good. You know, and yeah, I thought all in all, Brian Cox Jr. is definitely somebody that looked like he had a small bit of juice in him. And as you say, Port Augustine, you know, came in and got his sack too. So for a depleted area, and I know against a rubbish team, it was interesting to see these names, excuse me, and to see them perform well. So kudos to Steve Wilkes. He keeps being given new tools and new ingredients, and he keeps on at least coming up with something every week, bar the 49ers game. He's coming up with some sort of a defensive plan and scheme, and he's using people well. So, you know, kudos to him yesterday, even though it was against a bad team. He did the best with what he had.
I suppose this is the problem playing teams like the Dolphins. You probably don't learn as much from the team, but very briefly, Neil, before we move on to quickly have a quick peek at what's going on for the week, our special teams, excellent defense on the punt, the fake punt from the Dolphins. Like, really were waiting for it. Mm-hmm. There is a night and day difference with our special teams this year, and obviously down to Mike Prefer doing an excellent job on special teams. Yesterday, so kicking wise, I think Gillen he was out one punt, and Seabird missed one field goal. Again, I think squirrely conditions as well, but still playing good, all the extra points over, and a good performance on special teams all around. But
absolutely,
again, not much of a test for us there. Neil, this week now, back to the real world now, and the Steelers. I was keeping an eye on the game yesterday with the Bengals and the Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers struggled to beat the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday. We have to beat them on Sunday.
Well, at the moment, you're at the moment we have a 26.4% chance of making the playoffs, and they have a 28.5% chance of making the playoffs. And should we beat them at the weekend, I think that we would shoot up. Not that these percentages mean a blind bit of difference, but it was just, I thought it was interesting. But Mason Rudolph being benched, don't really know if that's going to have any effect, positive or negative. I think
is he going to be benched for the game on Sunday, or was that just an in-game decision? Tomlin was a bit non-committal after, I believe, was he?
he had something like a 39% or 39 passer rating yesterday. So, um, yeah, you think you'd have to imagine that he's going to be
I
benched.
wonder would the teammates rally around Delvin Hodges a bit more? You know, I
Yeah.
wonder, is that a factor? Is that an issue? You know,
Well, Delvin Hodges didn't exactly come in and play brilliant either. I think he had something like a 40 rate quarterback rating as well. Like he was 5 for 11, only 45% of his passes complete for 118 yards, but he got a touchdown, all right. But one of those completions was for 79 yards. So like, it doesn't. That leaves like 38 yards amongst four passes. So like that's a bit dink and donkey there for my liking. So look, we'll see. Old Ducky Hodges might be able to pull something out of the bag against the Browns, but at the moment, realistically, I'm afraid of ourselves. I'm afraid of us more than I'm afraid of Pittsburgh. I'm afraid of what the game means to us. I'm afraid that we will come in and be hosed by the refs. I'm afraid that the emotion will get too much, and there could be some like niggling feeling. It's just one of those games you just don't know what way it's going to go. But I'm afraid of us more than I'm afraid of the Steelers. They had they didn't have James Conner yesterday. Will he be back against us? Who knows? Their main target was James Washington. He went off really it was 3 for 98 and a touchdown, but that one touchdown, as you mentioned, or that he had one catch for 79 yards. So it's just one of those ones. They had a couple of like Deontay Johnson, for someone who was bleeding from the ear, passed all concussion protocols and was out in the field. He 3 for 29. Didn't do too much. I'm not too worried about them. And it's not that I'm being cocky. It's just that they've lost so much on offense. Like if Juju's out again next week and James Conner is out next week, I don't know how they're going to score the ball. But
yeah,
that's not my job to figure out how they're going to score the ball. I'm sure they'll come up with something. Like they only scored 16 points against a shocking Bengals team. And to be honest with you, Bengals should probably have won yesterday. Like, they probably should have won yesterday. I was watching it in Red Zone, and they're if the Bengals had started Randy Dalton, they would have won yesterday. Like that's the
like
nuts and bolts of it. Ryan Finley was brutal.
yeah, and like Ryan Finley, again, I don't think he's the answer to any question Cincinnati have at the moment.
No, he's not. Like they had 100 yards. Actually, it's amazing when you look at the stats. Their stats. Finley's and Hodges' stats are pretty similar. Tyler Boyd's and James Washington's stats are pretty similar, and it's actually really, really interesting to look down through it. Yeah, about the similarity. Like Joe Mixon, the Bengals start Andy Dalton, they win that game yesterday. That's just as simple as that. They would have got more yards, they would have got more touchdowns, they would have more completions. Like he only completed 12 of 26. I know it's against the Steelers defense.
If Andy Dalton was with the Chicago Bears, at the moment, they'd have a much better record than what they have, I'd imagine. Andy Dalton's one of those guys. He's probably good enough to win. He's probably good enough to win with.
Oh, he is, yeah.
But just like at the moment, just when we're thinking about the AFC as a whole, right? So we're sitting at the bottom of the wild card hunt. Say, like Jaguars losing yesterday was good for us. Bad that the Titans won, obviously, and we need the Colts and Raiders and Titans to maybe start losing games. And I'll be honest with you, I think the Steelers are going to fall like a stone. I think the Steelers are up there in that wild card spot. They haven't the hope, So like I think there's a 3 or 4 way tussle here for the wild card spot that's coming up behind the Bills. I think we're in contention. And I think we have 3 interesting games left: the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Cardinals. The 2 games against the Bengals I'm not counting as interesting games. I'm counting those as wins, because everyone else has.
And I think you're right to do that, because I think that will be wins, and that's not being cocky.
So Neil, what what's your projection for that wild card, that last wild card spot? What record is going to get? I'm convinced it's going to have to be 10-6.
Yeah, and I think we can. I think we can get 10-6. Well, sorry.
Mm.
I think the Raiders are going to drop after I was very I'd say I was a very good boy in my boss's house yesterday because I told him to back Odell Beckham going on the overs. I told him back Kareem Hunt and over 39 rushing yards. I was at 29 rushing yards. And I told him to back the Jets against the Raiders. And he did. He backed all three of them. So we had no betting podcast this week, and I'm disgusted because I couldn't boast about getting 11 of the 14 games right the week before. So I'm definitely going boasting about my predictions that I made this week, even though we didn't put them out in a podcast. But I think the Raiders are going to drop like a stone. I think the Bills need to start losing. I need to start losing quickly. They do have a kind of a more difficult run in, but they're making the best of what they have.
I think the Bills have enough done to get them. I think the Bills have enough done to get them through to the playoffs as they are sitting. I think another 2 games. I think another 2 wins, 3 wins get them over the line. So however difficult their schedule is, I don't have it here in front of me, but however difficult their schedule is remaining opponents: Cowboys, home against the Ravens, at Steelers, at Pitt. Actually, their schedule does stiffen up significantly.
Yeah, it's significant.
When you look at it, and the Jets aren't a pushover in that division at the moment. They'll be obviously, divisional pride, playing there. Cowboys looking to bounce back. We all know about the Ravens, and that's where I think we're going to have the problem, is that other teams can afford to lose a game or two. We can't, and that's the sticky patch that we're coming to. But anyhow, Neil, enough of this playoff talk for today. Let's get another 2 or 3 wins under our belt. 1 win at a time, 1-0 on to next week, 1-0 and 1-0 and on to next week. That's what we're looking for in the coming weeks now. Now, 1 win stretches, and next thing we look around behind us and we'll have 6 or 7 games in a row won.
I'd love to know when the last time, if we win next week against the Steelers and not putting the cart before the horse. But I'd love to, we beat the Steelers, beat the Bengals. I'd love to know when was the last time we won 5 in the bounce. Jeez, it must be pre coming back. It must be the 80s.
That's your homework for the next time. No, actually, I think it was the year that they made the playoff push.
07?
Where they lost. Yeah, and lost all the games then at the end of the season. So I think that might be it. But you can confirm 14. That for the next show, Neil.
That's for still alive.
If you're still alive, Neil, if you're spared,
high possibility that I could be a statistic at that stage to the woeful
Neil,
man flu.
We'll have to leave you go. So that'll do for today's show. Thanks everyone for listening. Please pass on the pod to your friends by retweeting, and if you can rate and review, that would really help us out. Follow us on Twitter, myself at John Cahill _IRL and Neil at 2 Green Browns. And until next time, enjoy your victory Monday and go Brownies.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay.